What we have here then is a simple, fairly basic, straightforward spreadsheet that deals with how much money somebody might spend in a week. But it's a good exercise in understanding how some of this stuff actually works. So we can see straight away I've deliberately left this top row empty just to give myself a little bit of space. But I could have started at the top if I wanted to. And it's easy enough to move things if I just click on the cell. Instead of using this white cross that appears, if I just move the mouse slightly, it turns into a little black cross, which then allows me just to move things around from one cell to another. Now, the first thing we notice is that some of these cells here go across more than one column. So where it says expenses budget, minimum, maximum, average, some of it's hidden because we can't see it. It's disappeared off the side. So we've got a couple of options here. We can either format this cell and wrap the text, or if it's not very long, like this one, for example, what we could do is just put the mouse cursor in between these column headings here, these two letters, until it becomes this double-headed arrow. And we can either click and drag until it becomes as wide as we need it to be, or we can simply double click and it will automatically stretch it to fit. Now this one is a heading, so I might want that to actually span the whole of the top of this table rather than just covering this first one or first two columns there. So if I highlight the whole thing, I can use this feature called merge and center. And what that will do is it'll merge all of those cells into one big cell and center that. So because it's a title, I'm also going to make that maybe a little bit bigger and maybe make it bold, just so that it stands out as a title to my table. Okay, so we're going to calculate here the expenses for a single month. So we want 4 weeks worth of information, and we're just going to calculate how much money we spent on food, petrol, clothes, any tools we might have purchased there, how much that's going to cost, and then we should be able to work out what our minimum, maximum, and average spend was, for the month. So the first thing we want to do is put in the first date. Okay, so I could just go for the first day of the month. So if I went for the 1st of April, for example, 2022. Now, Excel is pretty good at recognizing that that is a date. So I've got my first date. My second date is going to be 7 days after this date, and then 7 days again, and 7 days again. But what I could do is get Excel to just calculate this for me. So if I say equals and then select this date with the mouse and then just add 7 days, press enter, that will just give me that date plus 7. Now I could just repeat that for the next 2 weeks. So I've got a couple of choices. I could say take this one and add 14 and then take this one again and add 21. But I can just take this one and add 7 again and then take that one and add 7 again. And the easiest way to do that is to use a feature called autofill. So I highlight this cell here, which has got this formula in it, put the mouse over that little sort of block. You can see just down in the right hand bottom corner, there's a little sort of square. And when I hover my mouse over that, it turns into a black square. Hold down the mouse and just pull down 2 more cells and let go. And you can see it calculates by copying down. So now it's that one, and then it's that one plus 7, and then the one above it plus 7, and then the one above it plus 7. So that's done the dates for me. So that's nice and simple, straightforward. Okay, so now I want to calculate how much I've actually spent on this week. So I want to add food and petrol and clothes and tools all together to give me my total for that week. Okay, so there's a couple of ways we can do this. We can do this the way that we did on the introductory spreadsheet. I can do equals, and then I can just click food, press the plus key, and then this one, and then plus, and then this one, and then plus, and then this one, and then press enter, and that will work out there that I've spent 70. And because we've done the cell references, if I forgot, oh, I actually, do you know what? I bought some socks that cost me £5 on that week. As soon as I add that number, because we've done it based on the cell references, it will just recalculate the total for me. Now, there's another way we can do this, and that is by using something called a function. And one of the built-in functions is called sum. And you'll find on this icon over here, this is the sum function. But if we use the drop down at the side, we can see we've got a whole load of other functions in there. And Excel knows what to do with min and max and count and average and sum. So we've got a couple of options now. If we wanted to type this out, all we would have to do is type equals sum. And then we open a bracket and we use the mouse to highlight all of the numbers we want to be included in that sum. And then we close the bracket, and we can either press the tick or we can press enter, and that will basically give us exactly the same thing as we had over here. But if we've got lots and lots and lots and lots of numbers, sometimes it's easier just to type the range or to select it with the mouse than it is to go plus, 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 because that just takes a long time. Now, because we have calculated this already, we can do the same as we did over here. So we can grab this little handle in the corner and we can pull it down 2 more and let go, and that will then duplicate that formula down the list, and as it goes down it takes it to the next row. So we start off with 5 and then we go to 6 and then we go to 7. So that's calculated the totals for us. Now we are dealing with money, but it's not obvious at the moment that we're dealing with money. So what we might want to do is highlight all of these cells that we know contain currency. So we use the white big cross to highlight all of those cells, and then at the top here we change this to currency, and that will put the pound signs in there. Now we can't see here any pound signs because there's no numbers, but this is. So if I was to type 9 in there, you can see it knows it's a number that should be currency, and so it is basically putting the pound sign in there for me. Okay, so that's useful. We've got the total of all of those. Now, what we might want to do is total each column, so we know how much we spent on food and petrol and clothes and tools, etc., and then the total for the whole month. So what I could do here is create a row for the totals, and we can do the same as we did before. We can say equals the sum. We can include all of these in the sum. Now you can include the blank cell if you want, it will just ignore it, but because there's nothing in it, I'm not going to select it. So the same as before, equals sum, open a bracket, select the numbers you want to include, close the bracket, press enter or click the green tick. Now, the other way we can do that is by typing in the range manually. So I can see here that it starts at C4. So I could just type C4 and then a colon and then C7, because that's as far as I want it to go. Close that bracket, press enter, and there you have it. We could just save ourselves some time, same as we did before. We can use this autofill feature, grab the little handle in the corner, move it across, let go, and it will just drag that formula function across and do the rest of them for us. Now, it might be useful to know how much we spent what was their minimum spend during the month, what was their maximum spend during the month, and maybe what was the average spend during the month. Now, I've placed these across the top here, but it probably makes more sense to actually have them down the side. So I'm going to just move these down. Now, this is needing a slight expansion because it's a little bit now hovering over the side. So we'll just double click on the in between as we did before, just to expand that out. Okay, so what was the minimum spend on food? Well, this is just going to look down this list of numbers and then return the number that's the smallest. Okay, now we could do that again for the whole month, but in this case, I'm just going to do it for the week because then it allows me to repeat it so you can just kind of get the hang of how this works. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. It's a function like sum, and it's just called min. There's another way you can do functions, which I showed you earlier, which is on here. So as long as I've got this cell selected here, I can choose min from this list. And there are loads of functions all listed in here. And if you go for all of them, you can see there's just loads and loads and loads and loads of them. So if I just want minimum, I can type min and go, and it will give me min. And then I can build a formula using this box just here, which is trying to kind of help me a bit. So it wants to know, how am I going to calculate this, this min function. So I take my mouse, I highlight all of the things I want to include, and it puts that in there for me. And then I just click OK, and that will tell me the smallest number of all of this group of numbers is 30, so it's just returning 30. Now the same thing with this one here, okay? Now we could at this point, of course, just autofill, but just to show you again how it works, we choose min, okay, and then the box comes up, we select everything we want to include, and that gives us that. And then the same again here, okay, we choose min, and then it selects everything, press the button, and that's how that works. And then we can just autofill the rest, okay? So that shows us that the minimum totals was £75. That was the least amount of money we spent on tools. The least amount of money we spent was nothing, and so on. Now, if we wanted to do the same again here for maximum spend, it's just max. So we can do the same thing again. We can choose max. Now it wants to know, what is the max? Well, it's all of these. So pick the maximum from that group of numbers, and then we get 53. Now, again, if you know this formula is max, there's absolutely no reason why you can't just manually type it in. So it'd be C4 down to C7. Okay, close the bracket. Once you've done one, use autofill just to whip and do the rest. Average is exactly the same. Okay, it's just equals average. Now, if you're not sure what it is, you can try the obvious one. If it doesn't work, it'll just return an error. It won't break anything. Or you can go up here and look through this list of functions and see, well, is there one called average? Oh, yes, there is. It's just there. Oh, we've also got an average A and an average if and so on, but we just want average, okay? So what do we want to use? Well, we want the average of all of these. Press OK, and it tells me the average spend on food was £41.25. Drag that all the way across to do the rest, and then that gives us the average for the entire of that 4-week period. Now, all we need to do now is think about tidying this up a bit. Okay, now I merged this all the way across, but then I didn't use these cells here, so it's a bit of a mess now. So I need to unmerge this and then just select the cells I want across the top and merge again. Okay, so that looks a little bit tidier. Now, the other thing we might want to do here is put some borders because it just makes it a little bit easier to read. And then we might want, for example, to highlight with the fill bucket just in a slightly different color, maybe make those bold, just so we know that these are headings. And the same with these are also headings, so we might want to make those bold as well. Okay, just so that it looks a little bit tidier. So there's a really simple sort of expenditure budget showing how you can do the dates, how you can quickly calculate the totals using sum, the minimum number using min, the biggest number using max, and then to work out any average using the average function.